begin with a presentation by RSA General Manager Tim Clinton. And there'll be slides over here on the screen.
Thank you, sir. So RSA is here tonight to discuss and to talk with you about the issue that occurred and affected many of you back in late August with odor issue in the water. And so we'll start tonight. I am Tim Clemens, the General Manager for the Service Authority. With me are David Gerald, our Director of Operations, and Joe Gonzalez, our Area Manager here in the east part of Orange County. Many of you know Joe or had contact with him throughout this event. We'll go through this and try to answer your questions. Next slide, Alice. As we start, just a little bit about the Service Authority. RSA was organized as a regional service authority in 1969. Each member county's board of supervisors appoints representatives to serve on the RSA board of members. The authority's charter responsibility in its geographical area is the provision of water and sewer services. Currently, RSA serves in Madison and Orange counties. The Service Authority provides service to over 5,000 homes and businesses within its service area. In Madison County, water and sewer services primarily within the town limits and the immediate surroundings of Madison. In Orange County, we provide water service along Route 15 to the town of Gordonsville, Route 20 in the airport area. Sewer service is provided in the town of Gordonsville itself. And on this end of the county, water and sewer service is provided in Lake of the Woods, Wilderness Shores, Somerset Farms, and along the Route 3 corridor.
Hey Tim, could you get a little closer to the mic?
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. Our customers are served by, next slide, Allison. They're served by a qualified team of professionals who interact with and cooperate regularly with state and regional authorities like BDH, DEQ, EPA, Orange County, Madison County, and others. In our east service area, primarily Locust Grove, our team includes 5 licensed water operators, along with 4 licensed sewer operators, a vacuum sewer system staff, water distribution collection system maintenance staff, and administrative staff. We have 25 RSA staff dedicated full-time to this area and have additional support and administrative staff in our other office. Our licensed operators do receive ongoing continuing education. Next slide. This is an aerial. It's not the clearest thing to see, but in November of 1987, RSA acquired ownership of the Lake of the Woods water and sewer system. The existing system at that time was well-based and impacted by taste and odor issues due to iron and manganese ground contaminants in the water. In 1991, a 1.6 million gallon per day water treatment plant was constructed and put into service with the Rapidan River as its source. And that plant is known today as the Wilderness Water Treatment Plant and serves, as we said, Wilderness Shores, Lake of the Woods, Somerset Farms, Germanna Community College, and everything else that we serve here in the Locust Grove area. Next slide. An upgrade project, which we call Phase 1A, would add an additional 1 million gallon per day of treatment capacity, began in 2022 and is about 99% complete. Phase 1B, which is the upgrading of the raw water intake station, is scheduled to be completed in the first quarter of 2025. The intake, if you want to look at the picture to the far right, it's a little bit hard to see, but that is the intake area located what we say down the hill from the wastewater treatment plant, and that's where we had trouble with pumps during this event. The middle picture is just a aerial of the existing water treatment plant site, and as you can see, it's fairly crowded. I don't know that we're going to get much more on that site than is what is already there. Next slide. So let's get into what happened. I know that's what you came with. August 17th, which was a Saturday, we experienced faults, electrical faults related to our pump number 3 at that raw water impact station at the Rapidan River. These were attributed at the time to loose wire connections. Since we had electrical upgrades going on at that point, there was temporary wiring installed on August 19th, Tuesday or Monday of the next week, and that pump was then returned to service. On August 20th, we experienced additional electrical faults with pump number 3. And as a result, our plant staff switched over to another pump. On August 21st, Wednesday, our project engineer identified the temporary wiring that had been installed as a potentially inadequate and had directed the contractor to investigate it and to take corrective action if necessary. Later investigations determined that on August 20th, the wiring issue led to what has become known as a catastrophic pump failure, which released 2 to 3 gallons of food-grade mineral oil into that raw water supply, which was then pumped up to the water treatment plant when the pumps were switched over. Apparently, the temperatures resulting from the failure burned or scorched that oil, thereby creating the odor experienced and, in some cases, taste experience customers endured. Next slide. The temporary wiring was installed between, it's hard to see for you probably where there's a red circle on those, between the intermediate disconnects and the wet well disconnects as part of the ongoing electrical upgrade at that raw water intake station. This temporary wiring is suspected to be the cause of the pump failures. Next slide. Pump failures, unfortunately, do happen, and while they're certainly inconvenient, in this case very unfortunate, they're not uncommon among our industry, and that is why we have backup pumps in place. The food-grade mineral oil used in the pumps posed no threat to public health based on toxicology reviews, epidemiological monitoring, and sampling results. Since pump failures are not uncommon, and we have not previously had any odor-related issues with a pump failure, this was not initially identified by us as a potential cause for the problem. In hindsight, we should have looked at it and said, all right, timing-wise, we need to step back and take a further evaluation, but we failed to do that. On the 21st, as we said, customers began reporting an odor to our office associated with their water. It was described to us as similar to petroleum or WD-40. Actually, we heard all kinds of descriptions: gasoline, kerosene. It was described as a number of things. And our plant staff also noticed an odor on site, initially assumed to be associated with construction activities nearby, and still not thought of as being problematic. Out of an abundance of caution that day, RSA coordinated with BDH and then Orange County to issue a do not use advisory while the source of the odor was being investigated. Later that afternoon or evening, sampling was conducted by VDM, the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, and DEQ. The initial screening test indicated possible hydrocarbon contamination. This was later determined to be a false positive, but unfortunately that information was released to the public, causing concern, and I understand that. If you were to hear that, it would be concerning. When it became clear this was not going to be a short duration issue, but longer lasting and impactful, Orange County issued a local state of emergency to facilitate a coordinated response. And from that, a unified command and joint information team was established, made up of the Virginia Department of Health Office of Drinking Water, DEQ, RSA, Orange County, and the Rapidan Health District. Next slide. RSA, cooperating with VDH, Office of Drinking Water, conducted multiple rounds of sampling, as did others. through independent state and private laboratories. This was analyzed. All the tests throughout this event indicated that the water was meeting both federal and state drinking water standards. And the odor at that point was beginning to decrease. The one caveat in meeting the water standards is an ongoing issue we've had with disinfection byproducts, which you received notice before from us for haliocytic acids. That is an ongoing issue separate from this, unrelated to this incident, that we had already been working on the solution for. There were inspections along the river by multiple agencies that found no cause for the incident, like a spill or somebody had dumped something. We checked with pipeline company nearby. They've not had a problem with their pipeline. Health officials were reviewing databases, and they had notified hospitals to be alert for any potential symptomatic patients. To my knowledge, there were no confirmed cases of illness caused by this event. And regular updates were being provided to the public through press releases, social media posts across multiple county channels, our alert system, and a dedicated incident webpage being hosted by the Virginia Department of Health. Next slide, please. On Saturday, August 24th, RSA held a phone call with the Virginia Department of Health Office of Drinking Water to discuss improving the advisory status from do not use to do not drink, based on the water continuing to meet federal and state standards. Following that call, immediately after that call, we had pump failures occur in the two remaining raw water pumps, pumps 1 and 2, leaving us with no functional pumps at the intake at that point. Pumps 1 and 3 were pulled later that day by the contractor. Pump 2 was pulled the following week for repairs. These pump failures and repairs delayed the downgrade of the advisory, and we were concerned with water supply issues. By that evening, a temporary intake pump was put in place to maintain service to the plant. The plant was turned back on at 10 p.m. or so. With a temporary pump in service, the advisory status was downgraded from do not use to do not drink. Next slide, please. Over August 25th and 26th, that's Sunday and Monday, RSA continued to cooperate with the Virginia Department of Health Office of Drinking Water to conduct additional rounds of sampling and testing. Inspections continued at the plant and out in the distribution system. The odor and taste continued to improve at the plant, but lingered in the finished water, and RSA's staff expanded their flushing efforts, trying to eliminate the odor from the water system. During this time, testing was widely expanded to identify the contaminant, and an out-of-state taste and odor expert was identified who offered to help in that effort. Additional rounds of various tests continued to find no cause for the odor. And by that Monday, the 26th, the Rappahannock-Rapidan Health District folks lifted the recreational water advisory they had placed on the river. Next slide. Both PDH and RSA staff conducted another series of inspections on the 27th, that Tuesday, both in the plant and the water distribution system. No objectionable odor or taste were found at that time. There was remaining odor found, though, at 2 distribution locations that had not been used since the do not use advisory had been put in place. And to further remove any lingering odor in the distribution system, RSA continued flushing hydrants. Since the water continued to pass both federal and state standards, and the odor was gone in nearly all locations, the Department of Health Office of Drinking Water allowed us to lift the do not drink advisory at about 11:15 that Tuesday morning. Following that advisory lift, Orange County lifted their local state of emergency about 12:30 that day, and the distribution of water, both bottled and bulk, continued through the 27th that day, as it was already revised schedule. For the remainder of that week, August 28th through the 31st, RSA staff continued to flush hydrants and address customer concerns. We were receiving a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and we were trying to address all of those as best we could. Our area manager, Joe Gonzalez, visited many of the homes personally to address concerns and work with many of the residents at their homes. And by that weekend, our complaints of taste and odor had reduced to no more than 1 or 2 per day, and by September the 2nd, we were no longer receiving complaints of taste and odor. During this time, BDH was continuing to investigate the cause of the incident. Next slide. Post-incident, RSA was trying to still figure out what had happened with our pumps, thinking we had an electrical problem with our contractor. We contacted our pump repair facility that we use over in the Richmond area on September the 4th. It was during that call, the pump repair vendor described to us the damage as more extensive than a typical pump failure that he had seen, with approximately 2 gallons of mineral oil probably being leaked from that first failed pump. This was the first time that RSA management staff had heard anything about this being catastrophic in nature, and we immediately reported that to the health department as a potential lead in their ongoing investigation. They continued to investigate for the next week and a half or so, and on September the 13th, we were notified by the health department that the test that they were having done with their taste and odor expert, that they had been able to approximate the objectionable odor that people had identified by heating that food-grade mineral oil used in the pumps. And although the experimental ratio of oil to water in their testing was far greater than what would have been experienced during a real-world event, BDH did conclude that this was the probable cause of the odor. And after reviewing their information, RSA agreed that in all likelihood, that first failed pump was the probable cause of this incident. Next slide. The response to this incident is multi-agency. It involved the cooperation of the Service Authority, Virginia Department of Health's Office of Drinking Water, the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, Virginia's Department of General Service Division of Consolidated Laboratory Services, US EPA, the Rapidan Health District, and Orange County. Beginning the evening of August 21st, when it started, meetings were held often daily with representatives from various agencies in trying to determine the cause of the odor. There was ongoing laboratory analysis being done by RSA, BDH, DEQ, and BDM, seeking the cause. DCLS, the laboratory division of Consolidated Laboratory Services, was significant in their support in analyzing for various constituents in this search effort. The Rapidan Health District followed up on any reported illnesses to determine if there was a connection to the incident. Orange County provided support in many areas. They, along with BDM, coordinated issuing bottled water and then ultimately bulk water to affected customers. Orange County also coordinated providing showering facilities where possible and ensured the timely release of new information as it became available. Staff from the various agencies were virtually working around the clock for days on end to determine the cause during this event. Next slide. As a result of BDH's determination, they issued a final report later in September, and on the 25th of September issued to RSA a notice of alleged violation. This notice of alleged violation outlines the event and describes corrective actions that the service authority should take. It provided 60 days for RSA to submit a comprehensive plan to develop or take actions listed below. They outlined 7 things in their notice of alleged violation, the first being just asking for us to provide a listing of casual contributing factors that resulted in this event, including how we would respond to something similar in the future. To look at what operational changes we could make to actively and routinely monitor both raw water quality and odor, which should include reporting by our operators on their daily sheets at the plant. Changes to our policies and procedures to ensure that our infrastructure improvements ongoing with this were more closely monitored and overseen with a proactive construction inspection program. An appropriate ongoing communication strategy with our customers to address concerns. Ensuring a responsive capital improvement plan to reduce the disinfection byproducts and to improve RSA's ability to respond to taste and odor concerns where necessary. To ensure an effective emergency response plan and an asset management plan and anything else that we wanted to add to it. There's a lengthy enough list for us at that point. Next slide. So for us, the biggest thing moving forward is to work on rebuilding trust with our customers. I think you said amen. I have to hear it. RSA does respect and fully comply with the health department's notice of alleged violation, and we have already met with and will be meeting with DDH on a routine basis. But quite honestly, we did not need a notice of alleged violation to know that we needed to do better. But with that in mind, we have continued our efforts to update our infrastructure, to advance our quality control efforts, and to improve our communications. Whether you believe it or not, you as our customers are at the forefront of our thoughts as we work to improve our operation and to rebuild your trust. Next slide. So in looking at that, the issues that were presented to us by the health department, our infrastructure, what we can do there. And while none of us as utility providers can ever promise you that we can avoid all future service interruptions, we are committed to taking all reasonable steps to reduce that chance. So, what are we going to do? In our immediate actions, we're going to complete phase 1B of the upgrade using approved methods and materials. We're going to provide increased on-site inspection of the construction activities, which we have done. We've increased the time spent and dedicated more inspection activity anytime equipment is being either installed or removed. In the long term, we're going to pursue capital improvements to reduce the disinfection byproducts and to ensure that we're prepared to respond if there's ever a future taste and odor incident like we experienced, and we hope there never will be. Next slide. That rebuilding trust under quality control, it is our duty to deliver safe, high-quality water to our customers. While the water never failed meeting state and federal standards, we will strive to exceed those standards. Our immediate actions, we revised our operator procedures in the event of a future pump failure to investigate the cause prior to activating another pump. If we lose one, we will not switch on another pump until someone has had an opportunity to go down, inspect the area, pull a sample from the raw water intake well, analyze it for taste, for odor, for anything out of the ordinary. The raw water coming into the plant will also be monitored on a regular basis for potential odor-causing problems and noted as either okay or not on the plant worksheets. And we will continue to try to be responsive to our customer concerns regarding water quality. In the long term, for that, we're going to continue working towards installing a system such as activated carbon filtration that would both improve water taste and odor at all times, and that would also address the ongoing disinfection byproduct exceedance that we were already working on. Next slide. In communications, we understand that communications are vital in an incident response. And while we did believe during this that timely information was being given out through both us and our partner agencies, we heard a lot of people say they wasn't good enough. So we know there are certainly areas to improve, and we plan to do that. On the immediate side, we're going to continue to encourage people to sign up to our notification platform that gives out messages by what they call the alert system, by either email or text. We will evaluate establishing a social media presence, which we do not have. We do not have anyone that does that for us. So that's something we're going to have to see about. Can we make that happen and how? And we'll continue to hold public meetings like this town hall and our regular RSA board meetings as needed. In the long term, as we get these things going, we'll schedule regular exercises with our external partners, both to train and prepare our staff to respond more effectively to this type of incident or any other incident. Next slide. In closing, one person I haven't mentioned here tonight, and I do want to thank, I know probably nobody in this room, but when this all started, we were trying to provide bottled water because we didn't know what was going on initially. There were quite a few businesses and people in this area that called and wanted to donate cases, truckloads of bottled water. I can't name them all, and I won't try because I don't want to leave one out and defend them, but they were a big help through this, and so we do appreciate all the community input we received from various agencies, people, businesses. But we do want to encourage you, our customers, to contact us, to keep contacting us with any continuing questions or concerns you might have. With that in mind, a contact form is available on our website using the QR code seen on the screen or by visiting www.rapidam.org/contact-us. You can email us from that. You can also contact our local office at 540-972-2133. And if you want more information about this incident, the Virginia Department of Health still has their webpage up dealing with this also. And it was very informative, well done, well kept. They had a lot of time and effort put into it. So that concludes our presentation this evening. We will try to answer to the best of our ability any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Tim. So, first of all, let me just get an idea. How many folks would like to speak or ask questions? Okay. What I would suggest you do is line up over here. Tim's going to take a seat, and you all can line up over here on the side and go one by one to the microphone. And if you can give us your name just for the record and then ask your question or make a comment.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Do you have in place something that you test the board daily or twice daily?
Can't hear you.
Do you have? Thank you. Do you have something in place that you test the water daily or twice daily for contaminants?
I'm not sure what you're referring to when you say contaminants. We have ongoing testing at the plant that's done every couple of hours. From the time we start up to the time we shut down, there's various tests that we have to run. Now, again, not knowing what you mean by contaminants, it's hard for you to answer that. But we do have ongoing testing that's done daily. We have testing that's done monthly, quarterly, different things that are set up for us by the Virginia Department of Health operating permit that we have that mandates our testing. So we do have ongoing testing all the time. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lenny Schaefer. I was one of the businesses closed down during the water outage, and I have two things. One, please, the office next to my building, RSA, they're wonderful people. They represent you very well, but they don't have information. They were taking all the phone calls, and they really kind of got beat up over this whole thing. So in the future, I ask you please inform them so they can inform us. Keep that communication going. And second, as one of the businesses that was closed down, is there any talk between Board of Supervisors, RSA, reimbursement for loss of business. Our insurance companies will not cover anything. That would all have to be covered by ourselves because there was no damage to our building. So because we couldn't get the water and there was issues with pumps, is it something we can go through your insurance company, RSA, or is it something that the Board of Supervisors have discussed in Orange County?
We appreciate your comments about our staff, and you're right, we can do a better job in communicating, and we can try to do that in the future. Anybody that has turned in a claim to us, we file with our carrier, which is RSA here in Virginia, and that's all we can do. I can't tell you that they will reimburse. In fact, I don't think they have done anything positive on reimbursement at this point, but that's what I can do is simply turn in any claim you have to them.
Hi, my name is Bill Fraser, and actually my question follows previous question pretty well. It seems to me more than a coincidence than that 3 pumps would fail at the same time the electrical contractor was working on these pumps. I would, without doing too much investigation, think that there's some liability here on the part of those contractors for breaking down those pumps. Have we thought about seeking some sort of compensation from them to reimburse gentlemen like the gentleman before me?
Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't speak to the legalities of anything. That contractor is responsible for the cost of the damage that happened to those pumps. I cannot speak to anything more than that.
My name is Bob Fritz. My wife and I live here in the lake. We've been here for a long time. On nuclear submarines, we used to have backup pumps. In case something happens, we want to make sure they come up. I know you have backups, and I appreciate that. What I'm concerned about, and maybe you can expand on it. In Northern Virginia, water treatment plants have unbelievable security around them. They look like CIA buildings, lots of security. Because everybody knows that a terrorist targeting water supply, electrical grid is really big. We all saw what happened when we lost water for a few days. It was nuts. So what kind of security do you have around those pumps? Can anybody, are they surrounded, are they guarded, or can anybody get to them?
The area is fenced, but there's access off the river, if someone were to come up the river. The pumps themselves sit underground in a locked vault, but locks are really made for people that follow the law and rules, not for those that don't. We will have, as the end of this project, security cameras and everything down there. We will at least visually know anything and everything that goes on down there.
Does Orange County have any body that alcohol, even if all water
I can't speak for Orange County as to what they do. Like I say, our intake is at the end of the Wilderness Shores Way, at the bottom of the hill. You gotta go through the sewage plant and down the hill. So we're locked at the sewage plant, we're locked again at the top of the hill. But that doesn't stop, you know, if someone were to want to come up the river, then there's access there. And you're right, water systems are vulnerable.
Christine Greenall. Christine Greenall, I live here in Lakewood Woods. So one of my big concerns is the trust issue, which I have lost, I'll say 70% of my trust in the water system right now. And I was hoping to hear some things tonight that would reinforce that, both bolster that a little bit, but I'll just list a few reasons why I'm still having a hard time trusting this situation. First of all, we were told that there were no complaints about odor or taste after September 2nd. And I know I personally have submitted a couple complaints since then of chemical taste in my water. So the fact that we're being told there was no complaints, you know, I'm sure there was more than me. second. So that's not, either there's a big black hole somewhere where those complaints are going, or it's not being straightforward. The other concern I still have, that hasn't really ever been addressed, is we keep getting told that pump failure is very typical, there wasn't a reason to bring it up, but I have a really hard time believing that professional staff people who are managing this plant would not at least think it'd be worth bringing up in passing, even if they had no idea, odds are it had nothing to do with the water contamination, but the fact that no staff brought it up and no contractor talked about it, to me, it's giving the impression that there was an attempt to hide something. And it may not have been the case, but it sure appears that way. So, I have a really hard time believing that if people were independently interviewed, no one would have mentioned it, right? So, and the fact that conversation, that narrative was reinforced tonight, that doesn't improve my trust in it. The other thing that is still undermining my trust is the fact that we're being told that the only contamination was 2 or 3 gallons of mineral oil, food-grade mineral oil. But what no one seems to acknowledge is that they're talking about food-grade mineral oil that was burned or heated to a point of chemical transformation. So, it's not food-grade mineral oil if it's been heated to the point of, turning into something different kind of thing. So, and it may have not been enough to really cause any harm, but it just reinforces that we're not getting a real transparent story about this. And so, I was hopeful tonight that we'd hear some things that were going to help start restoring this trust. And so far, I'm not hearing too much that is. I'm feeling like we're kind of just hunkering down on the same story that we've been getting along. So, and some of the biggest ones is the fact that we had 8 state agencies from Virginia, from our county, including the EPA, investigating the situation, and it wasn't, which I think we were notified on August 21st, and it wasn't until September 4th that the story about the failed pumps came out. And that's unacceptable, and it's unacceptable to stick with that story that, it's just an oversight. So I would like to hear more about how RSA is truly going to become transparent with us, and I'm hopeful, but it seems like there's going to have to be more commitment. Thank you.
My name is Bill Lukashik. I live here at the lake, and I'm an engineer. My question for Tim is that, do you have any data logging, monitoring of mission-critical pumps? I mean, think that if you have such a criticality of both health and operations, that you would at least monitor 5 parameters. Let's say bearing temperature, oil temperature, motor current, motor voltage, oil reservoir. You don't do any data logging. We don't use paper strip charts anymore. It's all electronically controlled. You guys can monitor remotely. It's called SCADA, if you need help with that. But why aren't these pumps monitored continuously via electronic computer-controlled data logging systems? This is like junior college of 101 with the data logging. Why don't you do that? And why aren't those data logs available to everybody, including the investigators on site?
You are familiar with the term SCADA, thank you. That level of monitoring on those submersible pumps would not by any means be commonplace. I don't think you would find any utility our size that would do that type of monitoring on those pumps, especially since they are submersible. We do plenty of monitoring on lots of equipment at the plant. We're monitoring various contaminants at the plant. That level of monitoring in particular is not something
couldn't even monitor current, water current. You could see a water current go up if the bearings started dragging and burning the water. That would be immediately, any technician would say, well, the motor's drawing too much current.
The issue is believed to occur on start of the pump. In fact, one of the pumps failed in the first 3 seconds. So there, in that case, there wouldn't have been much you could have done with that data.
Start current is automatically measured by technician.
We do have data logging in place currently on a temporary basis, but we're in the process of transitioning to our new wiring and electrical systems.
Derek McCutcheon. How long were these temporary wires put in place? Do you have any photos of these field wires with this list?
Temporary wire was put in place, I believe,
The temporary wiring was put in place on the 19th. So, and your other question was, I'm not aware that we have any photos of it. Yes.
Hello, my name is Linda Lee. My question is in regards to the corrective measures that you have in place and you're going to put in place. How is that going to be funded? Is that going to be funded by the customers, or how is that going to impact? First, look at me. So, how's it going to impact me?
I've said before in a meeting down here, and I will continue to say, RSA's only money comes from its customers. Other than what you pay or the rest of our customers, that's our source of income. So we can do just about anything you want to have done, as long as you're willing to pay for it.
Do you have any rate of cost associated with the corrective measures and the tracking and whatever else you have in place to make sure this doesn't happen in the future?
We have researched grants for this area, and that has not been successful at this point. At least in our limited look, and we don't have a grant writer on staff. In our limited look, one of the things they look at is median household income in an area, and median household income in this area is higher than a lot of areas. So we do not qualify in that way. We've applied before and been turned down.
The one other follow-up question I had on, do you have an idea of what the impact would be?
No, not yet at this point.
Thank you.
So my name is John Famori again, in case you're here for the first time. I just need a point of clarity, a couple things. You said that RSA was founded, I believe, in 1969, started up, correct? And you were going through all the updates and upgrades and things like that, and I believe the first one that you mentioned, or as far as the last one you mentioned, will be completed in 2025, is that correct? Okay. Are you familiar with the residence 55 plus off of Route 3 that was recently completed? All the new buildings right outside of Lake of the Woods, all the residents that are being in, you're familiar with that? Twin Lakes, okay. You're familiar with the data center that's being completed in Culpeper? Okay, has nothing to do with you. What I'm getting at is what's kind of scary here is you're kind of behind the power curve with updates and how you're going to provide service when we're booming in this area. And I'm trying to figure out how you're going to play catch up without having these incidents occur again if you're already overstressing your system. The other thing that concerned when you were going through this was you mentioned that the sewage treatment plant was on top of the hill and the water treatment plant was underneath it, the bottom of the hill? No. So I misunderstood that?
Water treatment plant's a mile away from the city.
Oh, it's a mile, okay, all right.
River intake
Okay, all right, because I was confused about locality of that. I thought that was dangerous, but that's good, at least. But my main concern is Orange County has on its website the Route 3 2045 plan, I believe it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the point. And you're planning on additional reservoirs and things to possibly handle this infrastructure. My first question is where? Do you even propose to put a reservoir on Orange County site for that? And number two is, looking at how quickly, or I don't mean to be sarcastic, but the lack of quickness that you're keeping up with the expansion of the county, how do you expect to stop anything from burning up or not being overworked again? And this problem reoccurring.
I thank you for your question. The cause of the pumps burning up had nothing to do with the county's expansion in this area or anywhere else. The work we're finishing at the water treatment plant now provides an additional 1 million gallon a day of treatment capacity, which exceeds what's needed down here for the current time. I don't think you'd want us doing anything more than that. Our board is already evaluating the next phase of expanding the water treatment plant on a different site. And so we'll be looking at that shortly and what we're going to do with that and how to be prepared for it. Now, as far as impoundments go, many of those were identified years ago in a study that Orange County did. Nothing has been selected at this point, but sites were identified. And so once a decision is made on what site is appropriate, then that work can move forward.
And one more thing, we were talking about these things about, you mentioned that you have yet to fail or you've always been compliant with the testing with EPA or with the Virginia Department of Water. Was that something that you had mentioned in your comments? Okay, because this year I've got more correspondence with RSA than I've ever gotten in the 20 years that I've lived here. Yet I'm still expecting every month to pay the same bill. So how should we be paying for services that you're not providing?
Well, if you want us to make any improvements or changes or upgrades, that has to be paid for. And as I said, our only source of income is from our customers. So if we need to fix something, make it better, build it new, whatever, ultimately that cost is borne by the customer. So that's the only answer I can give you. I did not say we had never been out of compliance. We have been. We are out of compliance right now on disinfection byproducts for haliocytic acids. That's what we discussed tonight, was the possibility of granular activated carbon filtration, which would rectify both that problem and the issue we dealt with as far as the odor recently. That system would handle both.
My name is Renee McGinnis. I live here at the lake. My question, and for the RSA people, I get a notice almost every day about emergency water repairs here at the lake in one section. Can you talk a little bit about what's causing the need for those repairs and what is being done so that we don't have to keep doing the same repairs over and over again?
So these repairs are just from aging equipment. A lot of the original infrastructure fails, and we just have to go in and do spot repairs. That doesn't mean we haven't put in new water lines, new water mains. There's been a bunch put in all throughout Lake of the Woods, and we continue to see where we're having the most leaks and plan for that in the future. There's a lot of disruption on the homeowners when we do that, but it is something that we have to do. So the more leaks you get in one area, the more you prioritize that area and move forward with the project.
And I think you're referring, ma'am, to the alerts that come out either over your phone or email, and that's fairly new for us. I've had one area complain because an alert goes out, it goes out to all of our customers, doesn't matter where. I had one person at another location complain that, how come we don't put out any for their area? And I said, well, it's because we're not having a problem in your area. And so, we can be thankful for that. These are older systems. This system was put in many years ago. We are slowly replacing it, piece by piece, line by line. We've replaced, thousands of feet of pipeline in here. But it's an ongoing process, and we'll never be done. Because about the time we get from one end to the other, there'll be time for us to start over again. Things wear out. These pipelines are, sometimes 40, 50, 60 years old. And so they do spring leaks. In the old days, we would have never notified people. You wouldn't know we were out there working. So we've gone the other way. We're putting out these alerts regularly. And so is that too much information? Would you rather not hear about it? You tell me. Do you get tired of those alerts? Would you rather not hear that there's a water leak somewhere? Well, you're going to keep getting them. It's an older system, and we will keep doing the work on it that we have to do.
Hi, again, Diana Pizzoli. What is the new plan of trying to address or plan of finding a way to address new contaminants and ways to address those things?
You catch me every time with the word contaminants. Because again, I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for. What are we doing? UNCR?
How about new ways?
UCMR 5s? So,
New ways of
help me when you say the new ways. You mean to communicate or to monitor for? Well, the thing is, EPA is constantly revising what they want us to test for.
Okay.
So we're testing now for unregulated contaminants. That's what the EPA calls it, unregulated contaminants. UCR 5, I think we're in our 5th round of it. So as soon as we get done with one set, a year or so from now, they will add another 5 or 10 constituents, and we will then sample and test for those. And eventually, if they ever get to the point, and I should defer actually to my colleagues in the back from the health department, because they're much more versed at this than I am, Dwayne, if you guys want to stand up and answer this. When EPA finally decides to make that something we have to monitor for, it will come down to us through the Virginia Department of Health, and it's something that we now have to monitor for at whatever frequency gets determined, and then we will have to monitor for that. It seems like it's an ever-changing thing.
Just one follow-up question on the pump failure. If this were to happen again, would you be more inclined to let the residents who are affected by pump failures, would you be more inclined to let them know that there were pump failures and that you are trying to work on determining what the cause was and that you're working on remediation?
Actually, we had thought about going to that extent. Our main focus right now would be if we were to have a pump failure, that rather than us doing business as usual, which is, okay, one pump failed, let's call on another one, we would actually shut off everything and take whatever time it takes to investigate the cause of that before we activated another one. We can certainly look into how to communicate that issue to you, our customers. You had one fail. I have to recognize, though, anytime we put out that type of communication, some people will get upset by it or panicked by it, even if it's not a problem. But if we need to over-communicate that, we certainly can. But our main focus right now is just to make sure that we don't just say, oh, pump fault, pump fail, switch on another, until we've had time to figure out why that failed, which we didn't do in this case.
Bill Fraser, back for more. I have a question, this might not be an RSA question, but why can't, I know Lake of the Woods does not permit homeowners to drill their own wells. Is there some reasoning for that? Is there some logic behind that?
You're right. This is not a group to talk to about that. Someone is pushing. They can draw with those. I think Blake would.
My name's Jack Simons.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Jack Simons, and we live here in the lake. And I'd like to thank Tim for coming to talk with us all, and for the supervisors and RSA representatives, thank you as well. We talked a lot about the water system. I'd like to ask a question on the sewage pump system in Lake of the Woods. Understood in the spring that an engineering study was due in August or September. And I can understand that your focus has been on this crisis. Wonder if the engineer landed the study and when we might expect some information.
He landed the study with us today, as a matter of fact. And I have sent it to my board, and I believe I sent it to most of the board supervisors, although you may not have seen it yet because it was late this afternoon. And so that study has been completed, and it'll be evaluated as to how we're going to move forward. In that study, it recommends replacing or rehabilitating the 13 of the vacuum pump stations inside Lake of the Woods. That are all original stations that were last, had major work done probably 30 years ago now. So there will be that project coming.
Mr. Simons, Jack. So, Jack, I did receive an email from Mr. Clemens at 3:24 today. As I arrived here at the Lake of the Woods Clubhouse, I have not reviewed this study. I asked for it, given that we thought it was going to be in the August time frame, and it was delayed, obviously. I will, as we discussed earlier this year, set up a meeting with Lake of the Woods and RSA to review that and understand what the plan is for the repairs of those pump stations. As you know, it's something that we've worked with the Lakes Committee and the committees here in the lake. It's vitally important that we address any sewer overflow that occurs anywhere, but especially if you're live stream or into our meeting or Keaton's Lake. And so we'll get that meeting scheduled, and we'll see what is on what that study's all about. But I haven't came in at 3:24 today, so we'll give it to you and make sure you and others have that.
Hello, my name is Jane Newbig. I live here at the lake. I came to the first RSA meeting, and I was very impressed, and I thought it was a great beginning, and I'm very pleased you're here today. The one thing we have tonight that we didn't have last time are members of the RSA board over here. We have 2 members who are on the board of supervisors, and very surprising to me that none of them represent Lake of the Woods on the board. I would feel a lot more comfortable if someone from District 5 were on the board. So, since you have not given our supervisor a say on the RSA board, I would like tonight to hear from the 2 members that you did give that position to. Mr. Voorhees, is that right? There's another.
I'm on the RSA board, Marshall's on the RSA board, and Mr. Voorhees is on the RSA board.
I'll sit down now, but I'd like you to address your response. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said Mr. Voorhees is a resident of
Well, the board members who are on the RSA board, you all need to know that they're on the board of the RSA. So let's hear from them about what they would like to do. We've heard before from the
Okay.
RSA board.
Thank you, ma'am. Last I checked, I'm running the meeting, so we'll get to that.
Okay.
Is there anybody else who wants to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It looks like all the members of the community have spoken. I waited to go to the very end. Delegate Philip Scott. And there was a question here tonight that was posed, and I don't think it was answered. And that's, why was the pump failure not reported in the very beginning? I've watched enough crime investigation TV shows and medical TV shows to know that the most commonly overlooked thing is often the biggest cause. So the question at hand is, why was there not full transparency at the beginning of the investigation and the pump failures not reported? Thank you.
Well, as I said earlier, Delegate Scott, pump failures to us are not uncommon, and so the fact that it failed just did not click initially that could be the cause of it. Now, we did report the 2 failures when they happened 4 days later to the health department. But again, nobody was thinking of those at that point as the culprit. We were thinking of them as pumps fail in this business. As I said, going forward, we'll back up and reevaluate how we investigate those type of things.
Virginia Wright, I have a question. Do you have a mapping of where the lines have been replaced? Or which ones are on your goal to be replaced for 25? So that if someone's concerned with their water line being replaced in coming years, is there a plan that we can look at as owners to know which of the repair are coming up?
We do have maps of everything we've repaired and replaced. As far as what may be coming up, that often changes. As Joe said earlier, we are always evaluating where we seem to have more problems, and that may move up on the list of priorities, because if we end up with a lot of breaks in one area, we're going to be looking at needing to replace that line maybe sooner than we had initially thought we would have. So we do not have a map of what we expect to be next year. We have a list of potential things. It's a staff working sheet.
Hello, my name is Lauren Chu. I've lived at Crystal Lake for 3.5 years. John and I moved here from California because we had water issues in California. And here we are with water issues. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. I appreciated hearing your comments that you want to be more transparent, have better and improved communication, but I want to give you a -1 grade for your, the hotline that you gave us. So August 28th, we had a leak on Green Street, 2 houses up from where I live. And the water was just coming down the roadway. And there was obviously a leaking pipe under the road. So my neighbor called RSA and reported it, and she was told, we're really busy with this crisis. We don't have time. All our repair people are out busy. We don't have time for it. So then she asked me to call because maybe the squeaky wheel would get more attention. So I called, and I kind of got the same response. So then we called our ECC and asked for their help because that water kept pouring, it kept seeping through the road, running downhill. And we know that if that goes unrepaired for a long period of time, we would be responsible as homeowners to pay for that road repair eventually. So it took 6 days for people to come out and actually dig a deep hole. They had to dig 6 or 7 feet down to find the leaky pipe. Thank you very much, it got fixed. But I give you a -1 grade for that lack of response. last week, we got 3 notices that there were repairs being done. I live in section 2. And so I think the second alert was for section 2. We had a big dinner party, and in the middle of cleaning up dishes, we ran out of water. So I called my neighbor and said, hey, are you having water issue? And she said, oh yeah, there was an alert this afternoon, which I didn't happen to see. And I believe the alert came out 3:30 in the afternoon. When we went to bed at 11, we had no water. The next day, my husband turned on the faucet. It's brown water. When we ran our dishwasher, it was brown water. I have a little dog. I still do not trust the water coming out of my faucet to feed to my little dog. So I want you to know, you don't have my trust yet. I still buy bottled water because you don't have my trust yet.
I thank you for your comment. When I started this presentation, and I said when RSA took this system over, it was a well-based system. Those wells were extremely high in iron, extremely high in manganese, and we still have water issues because of that. That's usually the cause of the dirty water. Anytime there's a break, anytime there's a change of direction of flow in the pipeline, anytime there's a fire that may occur where they're pulling hard on hydrants, there may be dirty water afterwards. It is a legacy issue that is still coming off those old pipes. We've cut them open to replace them and found them totally full, coated with the stuff. And so it's still there. There's not much we can do about it except flush. It's occurred downstream. So what we normally do is after the repair, we try to flush from a nearby hydrant. But if it's gotten up into your home already, then the only way it's going to be out is if you flush through the home. Then you contact us and we'll provide a credit on your bill for that flushing. But that's all you can do once it's up into your house. I'd have to defer to Joe. These guys are the ones out doing those repairs, and they generally flush when they get done to try to eliminate as much of that possibility that happening.
And I remember seeing you on our street repair tape. I live at the top of the hill. The repair was done at the bottom of the hill, but yet the groundwater came into my house at the top of the hill. How does that run uphill?
It's a connected pipeline under pressure, so it's going to move. It flows by pressure, so that water gets pulled through that system based on where the demand is being called for. So beyond you, if somebody's calling for it, that water is still coming right by your home. It is a pressurized system. The only time it's not pressurized is when Joe and his guys are out there fixing the leak. And after that, then we have to flush and go again. I do apologize also if you call our office and you don't get a satisfactory answer, ask to speak to a manager. Nobody should ever tell you that we're too busy with something to deal with it. That's not acceptable to me, to Joe, or to anybody else that works for us. So if you happen to encounter one of my employees that says that, ask to speak to their supervisor.
So then, I'm sorry, in California, I have lived through drought. Back in the 70s, we didn't flush our toilet but once a day because there's no water. We used paper plates every day because we didn't have water to wash dishes. I know water crisis. I've lived through it many times in California. So here I come to Virginia. Oh my God, the first summer it rained. I loved it. I mean, we have water here in Virginia. But then I go on RSA website and I am told conserve water because water is a really short commodity. I'm always nagging John, turn off that damn faucet because water is a precious commodity. So then my next question is, I'm curious, okay? We have a limited water supply. There is all kinds of construction. happening along 3 and 20 and in Lake of the Woods. And if there's a limited water supply coming down the river, how does RSA and Orange County supervisors, how do they plan for that additional water demand so that we don't run out of water? Believe me, you don't want to live in California during the drought because it is not pretty. You heard the phrase, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. There's a reason for that. Rosalind Down, and I'm in section 7. And I have a question about a letter we received last month saying that if you have a health problems or what have you, we should not drink the water. You don't know anything about that? Yes, well, my husband opened it up and he said you were right, you shouldn't drink the water.
I disagree with water safety agreement.
If you have a health condition, I should have brought it with us, but we did receive a letter. And I do not trust it. We're still drinking bottled water and washing vegetables and what have you in bottled water. And I have the same problem about the trust. I don't know, when I'll be able to trust drinking the water again. It's a shame. You feel like all these years, we've been here for 21 years, and thank you. That's what we received it. It did say. Well, we're not drinking it. And I'm sorry, I don't know if we can trust. We can't trust it, right? And it's a shame because it's, you feel like we should have good quality water that we could trust to drink. And, well, I understand, Your Honor, thank you for that, but still, it's just like the federal government, keep in your trust. Thank you very much.
My name is Dan Hillary, I'm a resident of the lake. I think your attitude sucks. I think that rather than stand up here and belittle the people's questions and go through your presentation, I think most of it is BS. And I have no confidence in you at all. And I don't think you care. I don't think that it doesn't matter because I don't think you care, and I don't think the board cares.
Okay, that appears to be all the other speakers. Tim, did you have any closing comments you wanted to make? Brian, did you have any comment?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Tim, just to make sure I understand next steps and what you're going to do. So my understanding is you have an RSA board meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Orange County Public Safety Building. And since we do have members of the board here, I'm not asking you to answer because you're up on the dais here, but I would say to this audience that the board, RSA board, should consider having meetings in the evening and not at 2 p.m. It doesn't have to be every month. I'm deeply disappointed that you canceled the October board meeting right after this water emergency. I felt like that undermined trust. I feel as though the Office of Drinking Water did an excellent job of putting together a report. A couple questions for you, Tim. In that report, it was noted that you, it was requested, let me get to this. It was requested that you ensure an effective emergency response and asset management plan. What are your, what is the process for, you do not have an asset management plan, correct?
We have an asset management plan that's under development that we hope to have finished by next year.
Okay, so.
We have an emergency response plan on file with EPA, which we will update according to the schedule.
Thank you for that. I asked, I believe it was September the 4th or 5th. Strike that, it was September the 9th, I believe, that if you had an asset management plan, it took me a long time to get that answer. I got it tonight, so thank you for that. I have a number of other questions that I've asked that I would like answers to, and I expect, and I've heard from your attorney that none of those are confidential by law. So we're going to have some further questions and answers, some pretty basic items. A couple things I think you hinted on tonight. When are you presenting your plan of action as requested in the notice of alleged violation to the Office of Drinking Water?
We've already provided our response to the Office of Drinking Water.
When did you provide that?
Last week.
I asked for a copy of that, didn't get that either. I would ask publicly now that you forward that plan that you provided to the Office of Drinking Water to me. And I would ask that that you continue as you work through these issues to hold public meetings so that our community, who is the majority of your customers, be informed each and every step of the way of the significant steps that you're going to take working with the Office of Drinking Water. Will you commit to that?
I will commit to whatever my board tells me to do, yes.
Okay, so to everybody in the audience here, if you'd like to hear on a regular basis what the RSA is doing, I suggest that you send a notice and ask for that to the board so that we can understand what the RSA is doing and when. We have a need to know. We don't want to know, we have a need to know so that we can understand where RSA is going in the future. Now, I will end with this. I appreciate you coming here. I told you back in July, on July 30th, we have a town hall similar to this format. It was based on sewer issues predominantly. So now we have sewer and water that we need answers and issues to be discussed openly, transparently, and publicly. We care about it. It is not something, that's a casual issue. And so thank you for coming. I appreciate it. But we have high expectations. We started our very board meeting talking about that, and those aren't going to go away. So I would ask that you be open and transparent and that you continue to keep us apprised through, as the Department of Health said, regular customer communications, because we haven't been receiving those. Canceling that board meeting in October was an absolute shame, and anyone who was part of that should be. It's unconscionable. And I do have one other thing I forgot to ask about the flush credit. So I asked a bunch of questions about the $50 flush credit and tried to understand how did that happen. I appreciate you took some action around it, but there was no public notice. There was no public opportunity to comment. And there was nothing except what I learned was an informal decision by the RSA board to put a flush credit on everyone's bill with no input from any of you. And I will tell you that you don't make an informal decision as a board. All decisions are formal. and it should be done openly and publicly. And the fact that RSA board did not do that, and I don't really, maybe you've done it in the past, doesn't make it right if you didn't do it publicly. And so what kind of public discussion, what kind of public forum did you have to enact a $50 flush credit?
None, that's always been under the general manager's purview to provide flushing credits.
So,
as long as I've been with the authority, it has been. I advised our board of what we were doing and recommended. We provided a credit that in many cases exceed what a person would use here in a month's time. If you're a minimum user here, you basically got a free month of service from RSA.
I understand
For
that.
us to think we're gonna sit in a room like this and get everybody's input as to what the credit should be, we would never come up with an answer. I had to make a decision and I did.
So you made a recommendation to the board, correct?
I told the board what I was proposing to do.
Does the board approve it or not?
The board did not object to it.
Well,
It is not the board's decision.
I'm sorry, Brian, this
No,
is
I get to
this one
ask
far
the
enough,
question.
one far enough.
No, I
You've
haven't.
answered your question,
No,
it's
he hasn't
within his
answered.
purview, it's within his purview, he made the decision.
It's
No.
the general manager's decision to make, and I made it.
would you
That's
like to hear what I received in writing? I mean, because what he's saying is not true. So look, I'm not trying to be a
It is
here,
true.
but so here's what I said. I asked who made the decision, and the a $50 bill credit. This is from a board member. Was informally approved for all customers in the Wilderness Water Treatment Plant service area. All right, I said, okay, who was this $50 bill credit informally approved by? And the answer from a board member of the RSA was the RSA board as recommended by the GM. So I don't know what's true. I'm just trying to get down to the facts and understand it. What my
It's
point
within the
is,
purview of the general manager to give flush credits. He told us in closed session that's what he was planning to do. There was not objection. If board members had wanted to object, they could have in open session said, I object to this, but there wasn't. So it's a quasi-legal issue. But it's within his purview. It's always been within his purview.
so the general manager of RSA can give a flush credit without board approval to the entirety of his customers, and you're okay with that?
Well, it's within his, if he started doing it willy-nilly, it wouldn't be, but if he's reacting to. I mean, it's within his purview, it's within his purview to fire people. He doesn't come to the board of the RSA board to ask us if it's okay if he fires one of his employees. But obviously, if he started firing all of them, then that would be a problem.
Okay, well, let me
You
ask.
really not understand that, Brian?
No, let me ask Tim a question. So,
Okay.
Tim, what?
Brian, we're not going to stand here and crucify the RSA employee. We're just not going to do it.
I'm asking
We're not gonna
questions
do
that my
this.
constituents have asked. So, Tim,
No, we're not
what
going
was
to do this.
the amount, the total amount of the $50 flush credit? How much did that amount to in billings to RSA? Do you know the number? Okay, what is it? $250,000. Okay. Was that so hard, Mark? No. I just want some basic answers.
You didn't ask that question. You wanted to ask, you wanted to argue about.
You want to tell me what I want to ask? I just asked the
No, I'm
question.
saying I don't want you to cross-examine. If you want to ask him a question, that's fine.
I didn't cross-examine him. I asked a question. I asked a very basic question. So I've asked a lot more questions that haven't been answered, some pretty basic ones that are public information. And so we'll just see
You
where
will get
this
answers
goes.
to all your questions that are public information.
I haven't.
I think
I
you
haven't.
will, but
I will.
It may not be exactly the
2.5
way you
months
want it
later.
done.
2.5 months later. Is that how you want to operate?
We have offered you the chance to sit down with General Manager Clemens and ask you any questions you
He
want.
called me the day before he went on vacation, and he was gone, okay? And he wanted me to sit there and ask him the questions and then write down all the answers. So I'm happy to sit down with him, and we'll go through all the answers. If you're offering that, we will do that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Do any of the board members have any questions, any comments?
I'd like to make some comments. I'm Marshall, I represent.
We hear you.
I'm Chief Marshall, I represent District 3, and we have, in my district, there is a lot of RSA end users that I represent.
It says it's on, I don't know.
Can't hear
How that?
All right, start over. I'm Chief Marshall, I represent District 3, and I'm on the board of RSA, and I have a lot of end users of RSA people in my district. And their concerns, my concerns for them is the same as the concerns I have in this district. There's no difference. I'm out here to represent everybody. And to differentiate, I don't think is quite fair. Lee Frame served on this board for a number of years. I think he served well, and I'm following in his footsteps. Well, that's for you to decide. And I'm glad to serve, and I will continue to serve. And if there's anything that I can do, I'm more than glad to do whatever I can to help. I do feel that Tim made one comment that I think needs to be emphasized is the new protocol. If this situation was to happen again, the chance of this occurring again is very small. We're doing things to make sure we don't have this happen again. We can't turn the clock back, but we can learn from it and we can move forward, and that's the best we can do.
I like that. Yeah, did you want to make it?
You all hear this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I do want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Building trust is, that's a long-term thing, and losing trust is unfortunately a short-term thing. So I'm asking for folks' patience. I'm encouraging all of us to look at each other as folks who care about the community, otherwise we wouldn't be here. It'll be crucial to the long-term health of this community that we kind of take stock of where we are and try to move forward. But I've seen this this challenge in other communities. I have considerable experience in the water and sewer business in multiple communities in 2 different states. And based on what I saw during this incident, I want to tell you that from my perspective, I saw a lot of care and concern being demonstrated by the RSA staff. They were truly upset that this happened, and they tried to figure it out. And our neighbors came to our aid, Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania. We got the state involved very early. Initially, it was sort of like, well, what are they going to do? Well, I tell you what, as soon as we declared a local emergency, they came on the scene, and multiple agencies said, what can we do to help? So I do at least want to assure you that everyone I saw, whether it was RSA, Orange County, or any of the state agencies, they were clearly bothered and concerned about this and wanted to get to the bottom of it. So I want to share that with you. And then number 2, I'd probably be smarter just to stop right there, but I do want to talk about the pump failure specifically. I was made aware that the first pump failed in a very informal way as I was trying to understand the facts. And I want to tell you that no one in RSA's leadership acted like that was a problem. I mean, it was just like, dang it, this pump failed. We gotta get that repaired. So we switched it over to the next pump. even though the wiring was insufficient, that second pump continued to work. So there wasn't an immediate, reaction like, oh, wait a minute, a second pump failed. This is fishy. The first pump failed, and it behaved like a routine problem where it just stopped working, and we needed to move to the next one and send that one to the shop. It was only at a few days later when they went to start it up again that it failed and the other one failed, and then it was like the light went on. And we did find that the RSA has an engineer on contract who was looking out for this project, was doing periodic inspections. And we have found in his records, he inspected the temporary wires and sent a note to the contractor saying, this is not acceptable, you need to upgrade the wires, they're undersized, and that's not what I call for, and this needs immediate attention. So, I mean, there was a level of understanding by the oversight engineer. The contractor was directed to fix it, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen timely, and now, sure, hindsight 2020. I apologize. I wish I had figured it out myself when I first learned what was going on. But I've been around water systems in very small communities and very large communities, and what I saw was caring and concerning operators and leaders trying to get to the bottom of this, and state officials who came in who tried to help them. And that's just what I saw. I just want to share that with you. But I'm looking forward to working together on our next phase of getting on with our plant upgrades, expanding them for the future. And I don't want to get too far ahead of something, but we are talking, with some folks in our adjoining communities, and likely to have some more progress on water supply issues in the very, very near future. Thank you.
I'm Ed Van Hoven, District 2 Supervisor. My district falls a little bit more, as that gentleman mentioned before. We got wells. I don't think any of my district falls under RSA. So I got to look at this. I totally feel, as did everybody in my district, feel for all the issues you guys had. I want to be careful, don't convolute this Board of Supervisors with, we'll say, the RSA Board. I know, Brian, I'm not jumping here. You keep saying the board, and what Brian's referring to is you need to send them comments of wherever on these board meetings to the RSA Board.
Correct.
You're welcome to send it to us too, but that's the direction it needs to go. What I can assure you guys of, because I'm hearing some things, as a Board of Supervisors member, we are, because of this said incident, as unfortunate as it was, we are looking at the longevity of our water sources. We heard the words impoundment, containment, whatever, water source. We're working on this stuff. This brought this from I'm not going to tell you it was the bottom of the table thing for us to look at, but it certainly rose it on our priority list. So, there's a lot of things. Mr. Voorhees just mentioned, hey, we're looking at some things, okay? This has become a priority. No different in schooling or law enforcement or anything else we got to pay attention to. So be assured that this incident, for the greater good of Orange County as a whole, is progressing this whole, our water dependency is based on what, and how can we fix this thing? I personally want to thank Tim for coming out here. Man, this is a hard job for you. You're coming out here in the lines, man. I can imagine that's not so easy. I thought the explanations were fairly clear. I understand the issues they had at the beginning, and during any incident, everybody can always do things better. So certainly we can all learn from that as far as anybody for communications and whatnot. But know that we're working on a bigger long-term solution, so we're paying attention at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Van Hoven. really was just gonna pretty much say what Mr. Van Hoven said. I know there has been a lot of attention to the fact that, Brian or myself as being representatives of this area are on the RSA board. But please know, we do not operate in a vacuum. We, as the Board of Supervisors, are very much in tune to this issue. And as Mr. Van Hoven mentioned, this crisis in itself rose it up higher on the priority list. And there have been a lot of conversations, and there are a lot of positive movements forward. We are advocating for you to have good, dependable, quality water. There are things that hold us back from getting that quickly. And some of those things were mentioned by Mr. Clemens tonight. An archaic system, lack of resources needed to improve the system. You need space, you need money, we need an impoundment or a reservoir. There's a lot of needs surrounding the water and sewer that's serving this area. But just because we're not on the board does not mean that we're operating in a vacuum and we have no say and no ability to help move this thing forward. So just know that we are very much in tune. It is a priority. And we will continue to try to find resolutions. This was a problem that's been kicked down the curb for years and years and years. And it just cannot be kicked down the curb any longer. And there's not one person sitting up here or over in that corner that would disagree with that. So just know that we're working on it. I want to thank you, Mr. Clemens, and your staff. Having been on site every day at different water distributions and different facilities during that crisis, I saw all of your staff out there helping, even unloading cases of water while others were trying to triage and also work with customers. It was a difficult time for everybody. It was a difficult time for all of you. But we will move forward and we will be better from it in the future. So thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for your continued feedback and for your continued concern, because this is what helps us get to the next step.
Mr. Chairman, since I was talking to Mr. Clemens, I want to address the group here, if I can. Thank you. So I want to thank my friends, my neighbors for coming out, for everyone who is interested in this issue, because that means you care. I appreciate, as my colleagues do, that these are tough issues. I ask tough questions. I expect answers to those questions, and I'm not going to stop asking those questions, because frankly, the questions come from you. You call me, you talk to me, you see me at Food Lion, you see me at Fairways, you see me in the clubhouse, you see me in the golf course. Wherever you see me, you ask questions, and I try to get you answers. I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm going to continue to work with RSA. We had some great meetings earlier this year, and I expect that we're going to continue to have some great meetings and actions going forward. So, Mr. Clemens, David, Joe, thank you. I appreciate you being here. It's not easy to be up in front and to speak into a microphone and to hear different comments, but I appreciate it. You've done that twice now, and the more we do it, the better off we're going to be, because we're going to get on the same page and we're going to get things done. And we need to get things done to move our community ahead. Point blank. And Mr. Chairman, I know we from time to time have tough discussions, but you know what? We got to work together too. And Ed and Keith and Crystal and Ted, you have my commitment that we're going to work together and we're going to figure this out. And it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to keep people informed, because they have a right to know about what their government is doing. And you can count on me to hold that high standard on your behalf. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
A couple of comments on my part, and I'm making a speech, these are just random points that I think you got out there. When this happened, this whole board kind of went into overdrive on how to fix it. And we did it all according to, you know, the best use we felt of our time. For instance, Mr. Marshall got on the horn and got the tanker trucks coming in. Mr. Van Hoven, he got with the plumber so we could get the trucks hooked up so that you could actually get the water into household containers. And that's an example. Brian was finding a place to stage the tankers. Crystal was involved. She was out handing out water. I was in almost constant contact there for a while with either Tim or Ted, trying to figure out, because we didn't know what was going on. And we wanted to know as much as anybody, because it's not a whole lot of fun to hold public office when the train is careening off the tracks. So it's not in our interest to, you know, keep the problem going on any longer than necessary. You know, in terms of going forward, $47 million, that's where we're going forward. And it's got to be done. It's not a matter of if it's going to be done or, oh, gee, can we afford it? It's going to cost $47 million. And we're already working on it. We got to replace that plant, which is 33 or 4 years old. It probably wasn't a great tank when it was put in. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm calling it a tank. Plant. And we need to replace it. We first need to upgrade things like the carbon filters and that, so we can get on top of these byproduct problems. But over the next 5 years, we got to spend $47 million to fix the problem. And that's going to happen whether you're mad at me or not. It doesn't, that's just good public policy. You just, when you find out, when you learn that something's broken, you darn well better fix it. Don't blame Keith Marshall or Ted Voorhees. They've been on the RSA board for less than 2 years. We had 2 longtime RSA members who left last year. They were both board members. They both moved out of state. These guys took their place. None of this falls on these guys. And then there's been question about, well, who's liable? Well, I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody publicly, but I think it's fairly easy to figure out who's liable on this. It was the contractor. Be careful what I say. If something blows up and you can show that, gee, this contractor did something wrong, then the contractor is the one that's liable. And his insurance is the one you need to be going after. I'm not a lawyer. I probably just made the county attorney sick for saying that. But I'm just spitting out facts as clearly as I can on what I know about the situation. So that's all I have to say. Thank you all for coming out. Keith, we've got to stop arguing Brian, we've got to stop arguing like this. You too, Keith. So if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We are